everybody. I'm Lou of Lou and Pinkerbell. I was sitting here working on my journal and I was documenting some of the things that I learned on my first camping trip. This is me working on my journal. As you can see, there's Pinkerbell. I went to Florida last month and I spent a couple of days van camping in my Toyota Sienna. It was the first long trip that I ever took. I had camped in tents previously, and I had done a test run in my driveway to learn the new van that I had converted into a camper so that I could travel around and do some adventuring on my own. So I was sitting here working on my journal, and I started writing down things that were lessons learned. And as I was reading and checking off things that I had completed or that I had taken care of, I decided that it would probably be a good thing to share with people who are just starting out, just like me, and for people to understand that it's never going to be perfect. You learn as you go. And I think the positive of all of this is to keep moving forward and not focus on the things that are holding you back. So you don't get to do everything that's on your list, but if you make some progress, then the next trip is going to be even better. So I wrote down 16 things that were lessons that I learned while I was on my trip in Florida. And so I'm going to share those with you today. The first thing that I learned, boy, this was a biggie, is not to push yourself so far that it takes you days to recover. Because I used to do the Florida trip all the time. My kid's father lives in South Florida. And so twice a year I would drive down and drive back. I live in Georgia, by the way. And so what I learned this trip is that I'm not young anymore, and that 12-hour trips took me 2 days in bed to get over. So I don't think I need to push myself that way. There's really no reason. I'm retired. And so that was a big lesson learned. That was my number one lesson. The second lesson that I learned as I was traveling is that even though my Sienna is very comfortable, I need a better cushion because my tushy was feeling the wears of the road. So I put that down as my number 2. Number 3 is that I needed a longer extension cord. While I was at the campsite, I had a 15-foot cord that I snaked from the power source at the campsite into my vehicle so that I could power up, whether it was recharging my battery. I have a Bluetti ACL 200 and it powers my fridge. So I needed to be able to recharge it, and you can't use solar when you're in the shade at campgrounds. So I learned that 15 foot, while I thought that was a great length, was just not enough to do what I wanted to do. Did it get me to power my Bluetti? Yes. But when I wanted to make, for example, in the morning, I wanted to make coffee at the picnic table, I couldn't reach the table. And my cord would not go around the van to be able to plug in my coffee pot. So I learned that I needed to get a longer cord, and when I got home, I ordered a 50-foot cord, which is overkill, I understand, but I figured it's going to be good for no matter what my situation is or how far my car is from the power source. 50 foot's going to be more than adequate. And I've got it all coiled up and in my little garage in my car, so that was a perfect solution for me. I also learned that I took way too much. I thought I needed everything. And as I was preparing for this journey, I had bought different little appliances that Dash makes. So I have a rice cooker, and I have a griddle, and I have I think the company name is, I can't remember what it is, but it makes ramen noodles. And I had an egg cooker, and I had way too many appliances. And even though I was gone for a week, I pretty much only used 3 of the appliances, and that was my rice cooker, which I absolutely love. I have a my little skittle, whatever, skillet. That's the word. And I used that, which was fantastic. And I have a folding tea kettle, which it's silicone, and that was perfect too for heating up water and for making tea in the afternoon. So I got all of the other excess little appliances out of my car, which gave me a whole lot more room. So I learned that lesson. Way too much redundancy. I needed a better wireless plan. Boy, did I learn that the hard way. About halfway through my trip, I got notified by my carrier that I was at 100% of my plan. So the first thing I did when I came back home was I signed up for an unlimited data plan, and took care of that. The next thing I learned is when I bought dishes, I don't know, when you buy dishes, they're usually in sets of 4 or sets of 16, so forth. So I bought a set of 4, and for some reason I felt the need to pack everything. And it's just me in the car, so I realized I had way too many dishes, way too many utensils, and I got rid of all of that, and I only kept 2. One for myself, and the other one in case I didn't want to do dishes. I still had a clean set, or in case I went to a campsite and wanted to share food with a neighbor, I had the ability to have them over for dinner and I could serve 2 people. So that's what I kept. And I also realized that I needed a better storage, that once I do make food, I needed better Tupperware-like things that I could store leftovers in my fridge. So I went ahead and ordered those. I have a little DVD player, and my partner had bought me a screen so that I could watch movies at night. And I bought a really great set of headphones that I thought, I don't want to disturb anybody at the campsite, that I could sit and watch movies at night and put on my headphones. And for some reason, I could not get the headphones to work. So I ended up watching movies in the car, which was fine. But one of the things I wrote down is that I need to figure out why my very expensive headphones do not work with the setup that I have. So that's on my list of still things to do. As you could see, I have little check marks, and those are the things I've already taken care of, and I still have quite a few left that I have to figure out. The next thing on my list was I needed a better way to listen to music, because I didn't want to have my car turned on and use the car's house battery. And the way I had music set up is I have it on a USB port into my car. And so that meant I needed a better way to listen to music without having to turn the car on. And so since then, I bought myself this wonderful little MP3 player, and it has a little USB charging and a mini, whatever these things are called, diskettes. They're not called diskettes, discs. And so I moved all my music over to here, and now I can plug in my headphones, and I can listen to music while I'm in the car. So that's taken care of. The next thing was I had bought packing cubes, and I bought these rings I should have had them here. So about these little tags, one of the things I learned by watching YouTube videos was that people were constantly trying to figure out which cube had what clothes in them. So I bought these little tags that had that I could slide a little piece of paper into them, and in there I wrote down which cube had my shirts, which cube had my pants and my garments and so forth. Well, they come with a very cheap wire ring, and so as I would pull my cubes out from under the bed, the rings were falling off of them. So I ended up with this nightmare of trying to open up the cube to see what was in it. And so when I got home, I ordered these brand new little keychains. I replaced the ring on them, and now everything's perfect. So that's taken care of. I thought I would get bored at night, so I took a bog bag, if you know what those are, the big rubber bags, full of crafting supplies. I'm in my craft room, so you could see that this is something I do when I'm at home. I'm always in the craft room, and I'm always conjuring up something to make. I just finished making my Thanksgiving cards, which you'll get a sneak peek of those. See? So I make cards, and I make little crafting things, and I journal, and so I like to keep busy. I'm retired, if I haven't said that already. And so I took all kinds of crafting things, and the truth is there was plenty for me to do, and I took way too many crafting supplies. And when you're in a minivan, like, space is at a premium. So I learned 1 or 2 crafting items. I don't need to take my entire craft room with me. Boy, and that's a struggle for me. The next thing I learned was that I needed to buy contractor grade trash bags. And what happened was I bought a rug to put outside of my car, and it was perfect because it keeps the sand and the dirt out of the car. Plus, I had some place to put my chair in the day, and so it kept everything clean. Well, that was great, but then when you're going home and you go to lift up this rug, the condensation builds underneath the rug, and so when you flip it over, it's basically dirty. It's covered in mud or covered in sand, and now here I am packing up to leave the campsite, and I turned my rug over, and I was just shocked at how muddy and dirty it was. And so what I learned is that I need to buy, or I already did actually, buy a bag of contractor trash bags, because they're nice and thick and you get to reuse them over and over. And so at the end of the trip, you just fold up your rug and you throw them inside the contractor bag and you bring them home. And then once I got home, you can hose them down, which is what I ended up doing, but I ended up with a whole lot more sand in my car than I really intended for that to happen. And while I had trash bags, I didn't have big black trash bags. I had just a little small bags for my small van. So I learned that lesson, and I took care of that one. I use horse pellets in my commode, and for some reason, I felt like I needed to have, the entire bag of horse pellets with me, and you really don't. I ended up using, the way it worked out is I would take about 4 scoops of my handful of pellets to put them in the commode every day, and then in the morning I wrapped that up, and took care of it and tossed it. But I had packed this just an enormous amount of pellets that I did not use the entire week. So I learned my lesson that 1 canister is good for at least 5 days. I should say I learned that 3 or 4 handfuls per day is perfect. So if you're going for 15 days, then you better take that many more, 45 handfuls, I guess. The next thing was to, I learned this one the hard way. My first night, I went to put up my window shades, and I didn't really think about it until it was bedtime. And so here I am in the dark, in the car, trying to put up my screen shades. I have the WeatherTech shades, and while they're easy to get on and off, it's not easy to get on and off in the dark. And I ended up just causing myself a lot of exertion that I didn't need to do. I could have just had the car open, put them up during the day before I go to, before I close everything up for the night. So that was a big lesson learned. Before you go into the car to go to bed, put your window shades up. I think the other thing that I learned was that I needed a full-size broom. I had bought a small little broom, which I thought was adorable. Yeah, that was a big mistake because a small broom covers a small area, and so I was constantly trying to get sand and dirt up off the floor with this little tiny broom, with this little tiny, that thing. And so when I got back, I ordered myself a full broom, and it breaks down into pieces, so it all compacts nicely. But I have now a full-size broom, and when I was trying to clean off that rug using this tiny little broom, I think I could have probably written a comedy routine. It was pretty funny. Hence the bags, so I could just throw it in the bag and deal with it at home. And then finally, I think better meal planning. That was the last thing that I wrote in my journal. I depended on local grocery stores. I didn't want to carry food from home. And so when I got to Florida, my first stop was in Pensacola, and I walked into a Walmart, and their produce section looked like I was in a third world country. There was like 3 tomatoes, and there was no lettuce, and there was no cabbage, and everything I had planned to eat wasn't there. It was like, I don't know if they didn't get their truckloads. I don't know what their problem was, but I ended up the first night going out to dinner, which I hadn't planned to do. The next day I went down to Tampa, and I hit a grocery store there, and thank goodness they were fully stocked. But so I think better planning of my meals. Take at least the first couple of days worth of meals with you, and if you have a fridge, and don't rely on local grocery stores to feed yourself unless you know what the situation is there. So that was my first trip. I still consider it a success. I had a blast. I learned a lot, and I can't wait until my next one. Happy travels, y'all. Bye.